All right, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about a verse that isn't so much taken out of context, but it's actually just mistranslated. And so we're going to kind of deal with the mistranslation and maybe the misunderstanding of this verse by also looking at some context in the book of Proverbs. And so the verse we want to look at is Proverbs 22, verse 6. And you've known this verse, and it's translated, almost universally in translations as train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is older, he will not depart from it. And so it's this positive sort of thing to where, if you train up your children in the right way, when they're older, they won't depart from it. Now, we know this is not necessarily true. People who train up their children in the right way, often they can have children, they do depart from it or whatever. But obviously, Proverbs is kind of general truisms and whatnot and how you live. The problem is that this is probably not what the verse is saying. The verse is probably saying something closer to what the Hebrew is arguing, and then has contextual connections to Proverbs. And so the actual verse, if you just read it in Hebrew straight, says train up, and it's actually the word for a young man, a na'ar. So train up a young man. So this isn't necessarily talking about even a small child, but rather it might be talking about when boys get even older, when they're na'ars, when they're young men, from maybe the time of puberty, through their early 20s or something, which seems to be a pivotal time in their lives. But it says, if you train up the young men according to his way. So train up a young man according to his way. And when he is older, he will not depart from it. Now, if you're familiar with Proverbs, Proverbs constantly contrasts the way that seems right, so the road, the path that seems right to people, with the path that actually is laid out by wisdom, given to you by some sort of parental authority. It's mainly your parents here, because Solomon's talking to his sons, and this is how you be kings, this is how you become royalty, in a godly way. And so it's talking about training up people. If you train people up according to his way. So his way would be the bad way, not a good way. His way is not God's way. His way is not the way of wisdom. That's what's contrasted in the book of Proverbs continually as the bad way, the way that leads to the ways of death. So it's a pathway to further pathways that lead to death. That's what his way is. So his opinion, his ideas, his own reason, what he thinks is good and right is leading to death. That's not good. You don't want him doing that. So this ends up being a warning that if you train up a young man in his way, don't expect him to somehow turn around when he's older. He's not going to. Again, generally speaking, hopefully God will cause many people to repent and they'll turn back, but even then he's going to struggle with getting his own way and doing according to what he thinks is right in his own eyes, which is the description of the wicked man in the Bible, doing what's right in his own eyes. He's going to actually go into the pathways of death. He'll go into ruin that way. And so this is more of a warning than an encouragement to train up your children in good things. Obviously, the positive is there because the warning would have you not do this. Don't let a child go his way. Don't let a young man just believe and do whatever he wants. He needs to be under authority, the authority of his parents. He needs to be governed by that. And again, the word na'ar would indicate that it's not just, although you can use it in different ways. In Proverbs, it probably is talking about someone who's entered puberty all the way through their early 20s, that you have those young men submit to their parents and the wisdom of God through their parents to guide them rather than going their own way, because their ways will lead to death. And so the positive is there because instead of doing that, you would then train up your child in the way he should go. And so even though the idea is there, it's not quite what the verse is starting with. It's starting with the negative, and it just wants you to assume the positive in training up your children the way that you should. Well, I hope that's helpful. That verse is used in every children's rearing book that I can think of. But it does correct some things in terms of we need to understand that the child already has a way. He's not a blank slate. We're not Pelagians. He's not basically good. He actually is basically evil. His heart is evil from his youth, as Genesis says. And therefore, he needs to not be trained in that way. He needs to be trained in a counter way to his way. And so it corrects us in that regard. It also corrects us in letting us know that it's actually young men, not just little children. We don't just raise little children and let young men go off to college to be brainwashed by a cult. We don't let young men to go off and sow their seeds and become immoral people and somehow think, oh, well, they'll turn around when they're in their 30s. No, this proverb says they won't. They will not turn around. And so the vital time to training young men is while they're young men. And the vital time to get them to not just do whatever they want, to have them submit to their authorities, and to have them actually be guided by the wisdom of God is while they were in this state from, I would say, puberty all the way into their early to mid-20s. So it is very helpful to us, but it's not as helpful when you just kind of quote the translations because you don't really know what it's trying to get at. But that's kind of just what the verse is really saying. And again, I hope you join us next time, and we'll pursue some other passage then. Until then, God bless.